Is it possible that one of the keys to Giannis Antetokounmpo's insane athletic ability is actually the length of his Achilles tendon? And is there any truth to this long-held belief by many sports scientists that having a longer Achilles tendon equals better athlete? Welcome back, everybody. For those new, my name is Brian and I'm a doctor and a sports fan, and it's my goal here to explain different sports injuries and sports medicine topics in a way that's easier for you guys to learn from and understand. The inspiration for today's video actually stems from an ESPN story written by Kevin Arnovitz that I'll link below, talking about how one of the things that the Milwaukee Bucks were so pleased and excited about with Giannis Antetokounmpo was the length of his Achilles tendon. They quoted that his tendon was 13.5 inches long, and while it makes sense because he's a big tall guy, he's gonna have a longer tendon, they made a bunch of claims that this overall means he's a better athlete. So in the video today, we'll look at this claim. We'll explain the purpose, the function of the Achilles tendon, and then review the research that's out there trying to answer this question of, is a long tendon better? And while for someone like a marathon runner, the research might say that it is, in the case of a basketball player like Giannis, there might be some other things to consider. As always, hit that subscribe button if you guys like these videos and want to stay up to date, and let's get started. As most of you probably know by now, the Achilles tendon is the tendon that helps connect the muscles in the calf down to the heel, or the calcaneus. Whenever you raise up onto your toes, it's those calf muscles that are working through the Achilles tendon to help push you upward. So easy anatomy, but what's the purpose and function of a tendon like the Achilles? Tendons aren't just randomly designed by the body to just sit there and connect a muscle to the bone. Based on how long they are and the size of the tendons imparts different biomechanical properties to that muscle joint complex. Tendons are elastic structures, and so you can think of a tendon just like this stretchy rubber tube connecting the muscle to the bone. Because the Achilles tendon is an elastic structure, it has the potential to store elastic energy. We've all played with a spring, and you know that when you stretch that spring, it gets really tight. And that stretching of the spring stores elastic energy inside that spring that whenever you let it go, gets released. So the same idea is true with a tendon like the Achilles tendon. Its elastic property allows it to store this energy whenever the muscle is working to try and help allow the muscle to work more efficiently and not have to exert as much energy on its own. So think of the Achilles tendon like a spring, or think of it like a stretchy tube storing energy during our running, during our jumping, to help impart that additional energy to the muscle to allow the muscle to work better. So the theory behind why a lot of people in sports think that a longer tendon is better is this idea that a longer tendon is stretchier. You can stretch it more, and so maybe theoretically you can store more elastic energy in it, which means you can transfer more elastic energy back to the muscle. So let's look at the research and see if there's any data out there or studies to back up this claim that a longer tendon is better. The first thing we'll talk about is running, because there's a lot of studies out there looking at how Achilles tendon length and size affects overall running efficiency and economy. And what we find is there's actually a number of studies out there that confirm that having a longer Achilles tendon equals better running efficiency and economy. Some of the theory behind this is that increased kind of compliance and stretchiness of the longer tendon is able to more efficiently transfer that load back and forth, back and forth. And so whenever you're running a long distance, you want everything to be as efficient and economic as possible so that your body doesn't expend a lot of energy. If you're a distance runner, as was studied in most of these papers, you don't need that quick, sudden transfer of energy. You need that more kind of sustainable, long-lasting, efficient transfer of energy that is imparted by a longer tendon. Now, where things get a little bit more interesting is what happens if you're trying to go for more explosive power or quick generation of power. In that case, having a really long, stretchy tendon might not be a good idea, right? If the tendon stretches and then takes a long time to come back, it might be slower at transferring that energy from the ground to the muscle and back and forth. And there are some studies to back this up. There is data that has looked at having a longer Achilles tendon being associated with slower generation of force reaction times whenever someone's doing an explosive jump. The idea is that shorter tendon is able to more quickly transfer that high force that's needed with a quick explosive jump. And it makes sense a little bit just to think about. If I want explosive quick power, I don't want a big floppy spring. I want a nice short stiff spring that as soon as I stretch it, bam, it's gonna slot back into position. Now, I was an engineer before I went into medicine, and so I sat and actually tried to figure out this physics and the math behind why this matters, the length of the tendon and so on, and it's pretty complex. If anybody out there was able to figure out, please let me know below, because I had a really hard time wrapping my head around it. If you guys go back to high school physics, you might remember your equation for springs and the elastic energy they store is 1/2 kx squared, where k is the spring constant and x is the amount that it's displaced. The thing to remember though is if this is our spring, it has a spring constant as it is right now. That's a function of how much it deforms based on a force you apply. So what you might think initially is, well, if I have a big long spring, it's easier to stretch farther so I can have a bigger x, which means more elastic energy. Compared to if it's really short, I can't really move it at all, so I have a smaller x. The thing to remember though is if you cut this in half and make it shorter, the spring constant changes. It doesn't have that same spring constant regardless of how long it is. And so it's not that easy to make that comparison. So again, even for me, this is hard to really wrap my mind around the physics behind why this matters. But thankfully, smarter people than me have done the research to try to look at this question. So to sum it up, a longer tendon seems to be better for running efficiency and economy. And while the data is limited, there's thought that having a shorter tendon is better for rapid delivery of force and energy in something like jumping. So circling all this back to Giannis, does it matter? I don't really think so. I think there's so many other factors that go into a player like him being athletic and explosive and everything that he is, that you can't just point it to something like his Achilles tendon length. Obviously, you guys know that. You know there's more to it than that. And so if you change one part of the body to benefit your running economy, then are you putting your jumping ability behind? And if you do something to increase your explosiveness and jumping ability, then are you less efficient of a runner where you're gonna tire out in the fourth quarter? It's a complex question. I don't think we have a simple, straightforward answer to it. But nonetheless, I hope this was interesting to take a look at this claim and some of the research and mechanisms behind the Achilles tendon and these thoughts about whether or not having a long tendon is good. I don't think in any way that people should evaluate athletes based on the length of their Achilles tendon. That seems extremely old school and pretty out of date, but is still a belief that's held in some circles by sports trainers. That's it for the video though, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, leave any comments, questions. Don't worry, I've got a long running list of all the topics that you guys have suggested, so make sure you subscribe, make sure you stick around because we've got a lot of great stuff to cover in the upcoming months, years, and so on. And I want to make sure you're up to date whenever I release new stuff. Until next time though, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.